Okay, welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to go over the basic organization of cases and contacts and other things inside of Prima.Law. So everything you do in Prima is going to start with a contact. As you can see on our main page here, you can click this little plus to create a new contact. Okay, and from here, it's just the first name. That is a required field. Middle name, optional. Last name is required as well. Let's just do, there we go. And let's just give it a somewhat real name. Okay, email, this is highly preferable if you have one for your clients. You can do things like enable a client portal. So if I do, then at least I have that in there. And let's go ahead and throw in a phone number, so we can start sending text messages as well. Okay, we'll label that as mobile. Let's go next. Biographic information. This at this point is optional. A language preference is helpful to know what language your client wants to speak with you and the best way to communicate with them. If they have a preference, we should define that here. You can select multiple ones, right? Now, if it's a company, you'll use the company tab. But let's just save this contact because right now, this is the bare bones contact that we have. And everything in Prima begins with a contact, right? So when we're looking to start a case for someone, this is where we start. We create their contact. If they're just starting, if they're going to come in and do like a consultation, then I would say let's create a case for them for an intake case. Don't count them as a lead at this point because they're coming in. Now that they're coming in, you want to do an intake case for them. There's a lot of benefits to that. One of the most being you can keep track of inadmissibility information, things like that, and we have a nice intake form that loads as well. So right away we can say, let's just create a case for them. Here's the case type. It's going to be that intake case under the immigration. I'm not going to add any tags yet. I am going to go to staff next and say the attorney responsible is going to be this person. The primary paralegal, I don't have one listed here, but you could list that there as well. And if you have a completion date goal or an expiration date for this case, you can enter that. Those are optional fields. And that brings you to the case page. Okay, now what's the difference between the contact page and the case page? Let's go over it. At the contact page level, I'm just going to click on their name here to go backwards. This is where you can enter their basic information. For example, scroll down, name, their display name, if we need to use that with an integration, their date of birth, country of birth, citizenship, things like that. Biographic information here, which the forms will need. Passport information can show here. Addresses, including their address history, will go here. Phone numbers, if they have multiple numbers, you can list those and have those all here. Previous jobs, marriage history, family members. So for family petitions, a lot of times we need to know all their family members. Education history, criminal history goes here, and any custom fields that we may have added. Okay, so that's going to be basic information. We can also enter immigration information. Things like the current immigration status, date they became a legal permanent resident, certificate of naturalization number, travel history. We can actually pull that from another contact if they have a spouse that we already put the information in for. U.S. entries information, a visa history information, I-94 data. Now, by using this link and the Prima.Law Chrome extension, we can actually grab that information from the CBP website. Similar with EOIR, we can put in the alien number or the USCIS number for the immigrant, and this will bring us to the EOIR website so we can grab the latest case information for them. We can enter different work permits they've had here. If they have any priority dates, we can add that here, one for family, one for employment, or any advanced parole documents, we can track those here as well. So that's all under this immigration tab or button here. Related contacts are going to be other people who need to appear in cases that we create for this person. Okay, so if he has a spouse, we're going to go to related contacts, and maybe we'll make a new one, and we'll say it's going to be a spouse relationship, and we're going to be Susan, Doges. Okay, and we can add that information there, save it, and now you can see that under related contacts, he has her as a spouse. Okay, and this actually this goes to, it jumps right to Susan's page. Let's go back to his page. because we can see there's that connection now. Now you can see she's listed as his spouse. Okay, and now when I go to fill out a form for him, she's going to be an option. So the data from her profile can autofill the forms in his case when we select her as the petitioner, for example, or the sponsor on the I-864. On the contact page, we also see, of course, the cases, which we've created an intake case for him now. We also see notes, so we can just keep general notes here about this contact. And any notes you create in the case will also show up here. So this is like one place to go to see all the notes in all the cases you have for this person. Communications functions a similar way. You can track phone calls here. You can open the text message module here. It's not going to open up now. I don't have it connected on this account. I will show you that later, how we set that up. And of course, tasks. You can assign tasks to a contact. You don't have to have a case open for that because maybe they didn't hire you for the final case yet and you want to create a follow-up task. So you can do that from here. So every contact gets their information, their immigration information, related contacts, cases, notes, communications, and tasks. Inside of the case page, let's hop into the case that we've created. This is where you're going to have specific information to a particular case. So in the intake case, we have an intake form. You need to click here in this white space right next by the title, and I'm going to apply his information to the form. So any information in the database in his contact profile that I've had will go into the form now. But talking about the big differences between the contact page and the case page, on the case page is where you get your case details, your flow items, which in this case there are none, but let's go right now and let's just say he's done with that case and we're going to start an I-130 family petition case for him based on a spouse. There we go. Next, assign the attorney and go next and next. All right. It's easier to see on an I-130 case because that has defined steps that you need to go through to complete the case. Basically, you can go step by step and check these off as you complete them. So right now we would be receiving documents from client. If we're in that step, we don't go any further yet. But it has case details, these flow items, a checklist. So these are checklists that even in our law firm, we use these exact ones to gather documents from our clients to get the exhibits we need for the case. Okay, and we have those items here. We'll go over how to use that later. Smart interviews, again, you can send these to your client or use them yourself to fill out forms. Forms themselves show up here, and again, select who the form belongs to. Select who the form belongs to. Well, let's go right to the I-130 on this one, and I'll show you why I want to do that. Susan will be the petitioner, and in this case, Jay will be the beneficiary. Once you define who's who, we can actually go to Smart Interviews, and then we can say generate the interview for the I-130 because we know who's supposed to be the petitioner and who's supposed to be the beneficiary. We can generate that, and now we can click in here and start using it or send it to the client. Okay, we'll go over that more in another video because we're just going briefly overviewing what does the case page have. Package assembly. So when we go to assemble the forms, the exhibits, and everything from the checklist, we'll do that with package assembly. When we get a receipt notice from immigration, we will put that in here and we'll save that data and we'll be able to follow up with the USCIS receipts. Of course, we can store files in here. We can keep notes. We can keep records of phone calls, tasks, invoices, payment plans. We can create payment plans right inside of Prima or regular invoices. And of course, we also have a calendar, which will show any events we create for this person. And again, custom fields, which we haven't made any in this account yet. Okay, so that's the difference between the case page and the contact page. Contact page has data that you might use in multiple cases. The case page has the forms, the flow, the checklist that you need for that particular case. All right, let's go back to the beginning then. Let's just do a brief review. Inside of Prima, everything is going to start with a contact. Once you're ready, we're not talking about leads here, but once you're ready to bring the client in for an intake interview and then probably start a case, start with a contact. Make sure you have a contact for them. You're going to put in whatever information you might have handy. You will create an intake case for them. And from there, I would recommend, if you're an attorney and you have paralegals who can do this, have your paralegal go through this intake sheet with your client before you meet with them. It can be on a different day. It can be over the phone. Prepare your client so they know that this will happen. But I've got all this information here you can screen for. And when your paralegal goes through it, it's less expensive as a firm to have them do it than you. You don't want to have to be struggling with the client to figure out all the entries and departures, going over a lot of inadmissibility questions. You'll know what to focus on when you get there. This also includes screening for victim relief, like a U visa or a T visa or a VAWA case. So it's very helpful to use. And at the very least, if you have somebody else doing this for you, it makes it so much easier when it comes time to do the consultation yourself. Okay, so going back to the case, this is where you're going to start. Everything starts here. Now, something important to note here, inside of a case, you can keep a status. So let's say that this one was just created and it hasn't been assigned to a paralegal yet. The status is we're waiting on maybe the law office to do something. And this is going to be a high priority because it's a new person who contacted us. Okay. Here in the case page, you can also, actually this is on the case page and the contact page. You can create an important notice. For example, you might want to say, do not contact their spouse. This is a DV case. Okay. And that way you can see right in red on every important page for this contact that we're dealing with a delicate situation. Okay. And if you shrink the size here, you can see it at the top. All right. But that's just a general orientation of the overall organization. If you understand this organization, we're going to fly through the rest of these videos and you'll be making your new case in no time.